Hey there folks, how's it going? I came across this really old magazine, A Taste of Yorkshire. There's some really cool stuff on here that I thought we could make. A Yorkshire savoury, which is sounds like a toad in the hole type thing. That's in an upcoming video. If there is no link here, that's because I haven't made the video yet. But today, what I want to do, I want to make a meat and potato pie. This is often served with a generous helping of mushy peas and mint sauce. Sounds amazing. I love mushy peas. There is a recipe on here for mushy peas too, so we'll probably make them. Again, if I've already made it, link here. If I haven't, no link here. For a tasty change, fresh mint is included in the pie. I'm changing that up. I'm not doing lamb, I'm doing beef. Mint's not really going to go with the beef, so I'm not going to put any mint in it. This is from probably the 60s, I want to say. I can't remember what magazine it came from. I do apologise for that. I'll try and find out and I'll put a link somewhere or something on screen. Really excited to make this. Let's give it a go. First thing we need to do, we'll make the filling. Because the filling's going to take like an hour and a half to cook, which gives us plenty of time to make the pastry. So we'll start with that. And as usual, really, for this sort of thing, we'll start with an onion. Finely sliced one onion. Usual rules apply. Take off the top end, leave the root intact, and then take off those outer layers. Take this layer off as well. This is not an outer layer, but it's often a bit leathery. We'll get rid of that. Probably doesn't matter with the cooking time that we've got here, but this is how I roll. I use a big pot for this. A pint of water, some pepper, some potatoes, and the gravy granules, and some of that Henderson's relish that we love so much. 1 pound of shoulder of lamb or chuck steak diced. So we're going with the second option. I've got 1 pound-ish. Things are in grams these days. I don't know what to tell you. It's 400 grams of lean diced chuck steak. We're just gonna boil it. Feels odd, but we're giving the recipe a go. It might be awesome. So we literally just dump this in. Don't miss this bit. Place the onion, stewing lamb or steak, water, 1 pint of water, seasoning, which is pepper and half a level teaspoon of salt, into a pan, cover and simmer gently for an hour and a half. Right, we can do that. Let's add the salt. 1 pint of water. I'm assuming it's a UK pint, it's a Yorkshire pie. Stir around and cover. Get that on to simmer, an hour and a half. Bring that to a boil, and then once it boils, we'll turn it right down. Cool, so this is now coming to a boil and it's starting to foam up, as you can see. So I'll just knock the heat right down. Just let that simmer now for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Guess we can get the potatoes and stuff prepared in the meantime. Okay, 1.5 pounds of potatoes, which is about 720 odd grams, I think, 24 ounces. These are Marfona. Normally, Maris Piper are my go-to potato, but I don't want anything too floury for this recipe because these potatoes are just going to be boiled. Something a little bit more waxy, I think will be perfect. So Marfona, they're not a super waxy potato, but they're a little more waxy than your Maris Pipers, for example, or your King Eds. So that's a little bit more than I want. That's 1 pound 11 ounces. That's fine. 1.5 pounds of potatoes peeled and cubed. Let's get them peeled. Does it give us a size of chunk on here? No. There we go. That's all those done. So all I'll do is I'll just give these a real good rinse and then just leave them to soak in some water while the rest of the filling does, and we'll sort the pastry out. Let's make some pastry. It seems like a fairly standard short crust. It's lard and margarine. I'm not a big buyer of margarine, but again, we're doing the recipe. So 2 ounces each of lard and margarine, cold water, short crust, pretty standard. Make sure it's cold, and plain flour. What do we need of that? 8 ounces. I measure that straight into my largest bowl because I'm going to mix the pastry in here as well. I'm going to save the mess. So usual rules apply with this. We just need to rub these fats into that flour, just enough water to make in the words of the recipe, a soft but not sticky dough. So let's get on with that. With my lard, just to make my life a little bit easier, I'll just cube this up. The colder it is, the better your final pastry will be. Just drop all this in. seasoning that one gets from just the cooking salt. So just the regular old cooking salt will do. Let's get in there. So I don't want to overdo this. If I overdo it, the pastry will be tough. We don't want that. So I'm literally just going to rub it together. And people say breadcrumbs, but it doesn't have to be perfect. If it's perfect, you've probably gone too far. I do want some little bits of fat left once I finish rubbing this together, but nothing big. Anything big will end up being a hole in your pie, and you don't want a hole in your pie. It shouldn't take too long. The margarine in here as well, it's going to be a little stickier than you would normally get, say with butter, but that's fine, and it'll come together quicker because the margarine's naturally softer. And I'm happy with that, I think. So a little bit of water. Just go steady with the water. You just need to add a little at a time and just really work it through. Take a little while to hydrate that flour, and that's when you'll start to feel the sort of dough that you've got. And we do want it to clean the bowl, which this is doing. So I'll just work it a little bit around in that bowl, and it's a very soft dough actually. Make sure I get all the bits. Cool, and what I will do now, not a huge plastic wrap fan. If you watch the videos on the channel, you'll know that I try and avoid using this stuff, but for pastry, it is hard to beat. You can use plastic bags, but when you really watch the difference, it's still plastic. As long as you're careful with how you dispose of it, it's fine. So I'll just pop that in there. We can just let that chill out in the fridge. It'll be great by the time the pie filling is ready, which has got maybe 40 minutes to go. So time to go and do something else for a bit. Ah, the heck, lads, something smells right good in here. Don't touch it. What are you making? Yorkshire meat and potato pie. Eee, by gum, it smells lovely. Just leave it alone. Stop doing the stereotypes. Hey, I'm not, lad. I'll leave it alone. Just inappropriate. Sorry to all the Yorkshire folks out there. What was I doing? So, this has now been simmering for about an hour and a half. Full disclosure, I did check on it halfway through and it was looking a little bit dry, so I just added a little bit more cold water. I imagine you could do ale, stock or whatever you want at that point. I'm sticking with the recipe, so I just went with water. And it's looking okay. It still seems weird that we didn't brown it first, but whatever. That's the tradition. It's what we were told to do. So hey, it's time to add those potatoes. And this is them. I've just given them another rinse, and I'll drain that water and then straight in. What I will do at this point as well, because it's still reduced somewhat, so I will add a little bit more water just to help those potatoes cook. Give everything another stir together. I want just enough water that the potatoes are at least all in the water. So I will add a little more. Pump that heat back up just to get this back up to a boil, because obviously we just had a cold water. You could add boiling water if you wanted to speed this process up, but these need another half an hour or so it's fine. There we go, that's back to a nice boil, so I'll just turn that heat down and we'll let that simmer for 30 more minutes. So with about 5 minutes left to go with the filling, let's roll out the pastry. This is straight from the fridge. It's a margarine pastry, so we don't need to worry too much. It's much softer than a butter pastry, it'll roll straight out. Let's flour this board and roll it out. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to roll it slightly bigger than my pie dish. So I'll form it into a ball. It's roughly a ball, it'll do. I'm not really pressing on this. I'm just encouraging it to flatten out and just turning it regularly. That way I'll end up with a nice, round, even piece of pastry that will be perfect as the topping for our pie. Rolling and turning until we've got the right sort of size. That's great. It gives us a nice rim to work with. Perfect. So what I'll do next, I'll take just a thin strip just from around the edge, and I'll use that as glue on the pie dish. Pop that on, and then we'll just brush a little bit of water on. Don't need to be too precious about this. So all I'll do is just these bits that I've cut into here, using a little bit of water, slightly wet the edge, stick those around. There we go, perfect. Pastry's done. The filling has now had its half an hour, so let's take a look at it. The cooking stock is thickened with gravy granules. That might be fun. Now again, it dried out slightly more than anticipated, but that's absolutely fine because we're going to take these out with a slotted spoon anyway, and then make a gravy with the liquid that's left, so we can always thin it out a little bit more. I'm not a big gravy granules guy, as you probably know if you watch the videos on the channel, but I have bought some gravy granules just because if we're going to try the recipe, let's try the recipe. So we're going to go with some gravy granules. First things first, spider, slotted spoon works fine too. And let's get this filling into this pie. And that leaves us with that. Now I feel like I'm going to need a little bit more gravy in my pie than that, plus I want some to serve with it. So I'm going to add a little more water to this, and then the gravy granules, we'll do that over the hob. Let's get that done. I imagine this makes a difference with your gravy granules of choice. So this is calling for 2 level tablespoons. So that's what we'll use. I'm using these gravy granules today. 2 level tablespoons of those. I do feel like that needs just a little bit more water. I want quite a thick gravy, but not too thick. And again, it will reduce slightly while the pie cooks in the oven. Let's just check seasoning on this. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay. And again, just a little bit of water on this pastry just to help form a seal. You could use egg wash here. I would normally egg wash this and the lid of the pie, but the recipe does not specify an egg wash or even a milk wash, so I will not be doing that. And then the usual trick, I'll just lift my pastry up onto my pin and we'll just lay it across the pie. Light touch. Now they're nothing fancy today. I'm just going to crimp around the edge with a fork. Just ready to seal it. I mean, it does look okay, but the main purpose of this is not for the look. It's literally just to seal those edges together. Go around the edge with a sharp knife, downward cutting motion. And there we have it, one ready to go in the oven, Yorkshire meat and potato pie. I'm not very good at decorating. If you want to decorate, go for it. I'm not going to because I suck at it, if I'm honest, so I'm not going to decorate it. Feel free to decorate it if you want to. You could egg wash it, as I say, you could milk wash it. The recipe doesn't say to do either of those things, so I'm not going to. We'll just see how it turns out. It should be a sort of a pale golden brown by the time it's finished. 25 minutes-ish, I think, in a sort of 200C oven. Let's see what the recipe says. 30 to 35 minutes until lightly browned. 200C, gas mark 6, 400F. It won't glaze without obviously the wash, but that's fine. I'm going to put it on a baking tray because it'll be much easier to handle. Preheated oven. Let's get it in. One thing that we need to do is just make a couple of slits just to allow steam to escape, otherwise it's likely to burst. Middle shelf, 30-35 minutes, 200C, 400F, fan. maybe a little bit more, 210 for 15-ish. Conventional oven. Also, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that I forgot to add the Henderson's relish when I made the gravy. Oh dear. Oh well. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make some serving gravy with the granules according to the pack instructions. Maybe season it a bit, I don't know, we'll see how it is. And then I'll add the Henderson's to that. And that should be a reasonable substitute for me having forgotten to put it in as I was supposed to. Oh dear. Okay, so I've just made up some of the gravy granules according to the instructions on the pack, and I've added in some Henderson's relish. I've also added a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. It was rather under seasoned, and it's passable. Yeah, it's not bad. The Henderson's helps massively. It's really good with that. So I'm pretty happy with that, I think. And it is time for the pie to come out. So let's do that. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. It's browned lightly, like it said in the recipe. It's not glazed because obviously we didn't put an egg wash or a milk wash on it, but that's cool. The pastry is well cooked. It smells amazing. I'm not gonna lie, it does smell absolutely awesome. So I'm just gonna give this a couple of minutes to cool down, and then I'm going to serve it with some of that gravy. Here we go, let's give it a go. I'm gonna try it without the gravy first, just to see what everything's come out like. A little bit of meat, a little bit of potato. That's actually really good. Even without the Henderson's relish, it doesn't need the Henderson's relish. But yeah, that's really good. Let's try it with some of that gravy. It's like the taste of childhood. It's amazing. You've got to give this a try, folks. It's great. It's really easy to make. Didn't take all that long, as you saw. Obviously a lot of time for it to cook, but it was not active cooking. Give this a go. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and watch this video next to find out what would go perfectly with this.